1. Keep your commitment to your commitment. Ken Blanchard. In 2012, my wife, Margie, and I will be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary. It's hard to imagine we've been together that long, but as we look back on the years, we see that it has been a wonderful journey of learning. I say journey of learning because if you claim your marriage hasn't had any bumps in the road, you probably lie about other things too. Learning to live with someone else and create a loving relationship is a challenge in our society where giving up on marriage seems to be the rule rather than the exception. Falling in love after you say, I do. The challenge of marriage was spelled out clearly several years ago for Margie and me by a young tour guide as he showed us around during our first visit to India. He was in his early 20s and told us that his mom and dad were back home arranging his marriage. Hearing that, I asked him, since you have toured with many Americans, what do you think is the main difference between an Indian arranged marriage and a typical American marriage? I will never forget his reply. I think the assumption in an Indian arranged marriage is that over time you will fall in love with the person you marry, said the tour guide. With American marriages, I get the impression that you fall in love before marriage and then fall out of love during marriage. The power of the young man's words impacted me so much that I recently shared it when I participated in my nephew's wedding ceremony. I grabbed the hands of the bride and groom and held them as I said, my hope, my dream, my prayer for you both is that years from now, you will look back at your wedding day and realize that it was the day you loved each other the least. May your life together be one of falling in love with each other more every day. People who were gathered there almost sighed in unison. They knew that it was a wonderful thought and that it would be a real challenge. Why? Remember why you fell in love. My observation is that when couples fall in love before they get married, they are focusing on everything positive. You know the old saying, love is blind. We are usually googly-eyed over each other before we get married. Then, once the marriage vows are said and we start trying to merge our lives together, we begin to recognize little things we didn't notice before. Our attention starts to move from catching each other doing things right to focusing on what might be wrong. Over time, we may forget why we even fell in love if we continue to focus on the negative. If this cycle isn't broken, the journey to divorce court is well on its way. Margie often says that our marriage really became great when she made the conscious decision to love the total package that was me. That included re-examining the reasons she fell in love with me and realizing that they far outweighed the things about me that bugged her. With that realization came the clarity that it is much easier to change a habit or behavior when you are in a supportive, loving environment than when you are continually having your shortcomings highlighted for you. After all, even though God doesn't make junk, none of us is perfect. We all have things we can work on to make ourselves better partners for life. Do you want your relationship to work? People ask me all the time if I do marriage counseling. I say, no, but I'll ask you one question. Do you want your relationship to work? There are only two answers to this question, yes and no. If you say, yes, if she or he does such and such, that's really a no answer. The commitment to make a relationship work has to be just that, a commitment. I'll never forget a time in our relationship when Margie and I hit a rough patch. I was on the faculty at the University of Massachusetts, and she was working on her doctorate in communication studies. Our son Scott and daughter Debbie were both in elementary school. I was becoming a local hero and being asked to do all kinds of presentations and teaching, while Margie had her nose stuck in a book. She felt I wasn't being helpful enough with the kids, and I felt that working on her doctorate wasn't making her a fun person to be around. We were beginning to drift apart. During the height of this period, I was given sabbatical leave with an opportunity to go from Amherst, Massachusetts to San Diego, California for a year. I had just been promoted to full professor with tenure, and Margie was about to finish her doctorate. We sat down one night and had a conversation that would make all the difference in our future relationship. I asked Margie, do you want to go to California with me? What I was really asking was, do you want to make our relationship work? Even though these had been rocky times, she said, "Yes, I love you and I want to make our relationship work." My response was also yes. So, with a 2-yes commitment, we agreed that we needed help and should seek marriage counseling. We were fortunate to make contact with Maria Bowen, who had been one of Carl Rogers' top graduate students. When we arrived in California, we started meeting with Maria once a week and did so for almost a year. Marriage counseling doesn't work unless you have 2 yeses in response to the commitment question. If one or both partners are still trying to decide whether they want to work things out, you can't be honest and open with each other for fear that will be the last straw. But if both individuals are committed to making the relationship work, a good counselor can really help you develop strategies and ways to interact that will build up the relationship rather than tear it down. It's worth the effort. I'll never forget what Peter Drucker, a pioneer in my field of business management, once said, "Nothing good happens by accident." You have to establish a structure for making your marriage work. I love that a lot of young couples today have date nights when, at least twice a month, they get a babysitter and go out together. The rule is that they can't talk about their work or the kids, only about their relationship and how they are doing as a couple. These date nights don't have to be intense or expensive. They can be fun. And what a difference it could make if every married couple scheduled 26 date nights a year to focus only on their relationship. One of the most powerful things Margie and I did while we were going through marriage counseling was to attend a worldwide marriage encounter weekend. This wonderful weekend program, designed for couples, began in the Catholic Church and has grown to include almost every faith. Although you go through the process with other couples, most of your time is focused on your own marriage relationship. The process involves writing each other a series of letters, beginning the first night with "What I really like about you is," and ending on the last day with "Why I choose to spend the rest of my life with you." One spouse is asked to write his or her letter in the meeting room while the other person writes in the couple's hotel room. When the letter writing time is up, the person in the meeting room goes back to the hotel room and, with a hug, exchanges letters with his or her spouse. After reading each other's letter, the couple decides who goes first. So, for instance, if I went first, I would tell Margie what she really liked about me most until she agreed that's what she had said in her letter. Then Margie would tell me what I really liked about her until I agreed that's what I had said. This was a wonderful way to make sure we had heard each other properly. After making sure we understood each other's feelings, we would talk. At the end of the weekend, couples who had completed the process walked out with smiles on their faces and love in their hearts. The organizers suggested that we continue to use this letter-writing dialogue process in the future whenever issues crop up. Margie and I still use this method today. When an important issue comes up and we need to really understand each other's point of view, we get out the paper and pens and start writing. Whatever strategies you employ to nurture your marriage, whether seeking marital counseling, attending workshops, writing letters, or something different altogether, keep your commitment to your commitment. Invest the effort and expense. It will be worth it. Marriage is the most important relationship you will ever have. Margie and I are more in love with each other than ever before. What a blessing. Dr. Ken Blanchard is an author, speaker, and management expert who has co-authored more than 30 best-selling books. Ken is the Chief Spiritual Officer of the Ken Blanchard Companies, an international management training and consulting firm that he and his wife Marjorie co-founded in 1979. Their son Scott and daughter Debbie are executive vice presidents for the company. Ken is also co-founder of Lead Like Jesus, a ministry devoted to helping people become servant leaders. Ken and Margie will celebrate their 50th anniversary in 2012.